very rarely do people come to support him. About, has it been seven or 8 years ago? I ran across Dave. My wife was sponsored by Susan, and the first memory I recall of Dave was at a conference, and it had been a particularly noisy bunch of people were in the back making some noise during the speaker, and Dave got up from behind the podium, and I'm sitting in the third row of the deal, and Dave had gotten up from behind the podium, and well, he just blasted everybody that was back making noise in the back of the room. I can't believe you people, no respect for the speaker, and I'm sitting in the third row thinking, what a jerk. This guy's the biggest jerk I've ever seen. And I watched Dave for a long time, and I came to see that what he did in his life spoke so loud I couldn't hear anything he said. He was truly what our book says, a man with a real answer, and I paid attention to that. And when my sponsor Dennis passed away, there was no other choice but to go to Dave. I just knew that's where I was directed for sponsorship, and so we started a year ago. About 14 months ago, we started to get together and talk about this group and starting this group. Maybe a little longer than that, but we met in a couple backyards and we talked about what we were doing. And if you ask anybody in our group, you'll get a different reason why we started this group. I think everybody's got their own deal of why we started this group. But we talked to Dave and Susan and had them come down, and Dave encouraged unity, that you got to unite around something. And we got together as a group and we talked about what we wanted to stand for. And things came up like respect and sponsorship and altruism, placing the welfare of others ahead of our own, and going out and getting a new drunk, and spirituality and God and love. And those are the things we talked about, and that's the principles that this group has been founded on, and we're united around those principles. And it's been the guiding hand of Dave and Susan that have helped us walk, and others like them that have walked us to where we are today. And I'm so grateful for that. And with that, I give you David B. from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Hi, everybody. My name is David Bray. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, David.
And my sobriety date is January 2nd, 1981. And for that period of time, very, very grateful. And if back in 1981, when I sat in those first meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have experienced something like Mike described, I probably would have walked up. You know, I mean, if I would have run across somebody that I see the things that I have been taught by the people that have come before me early on, probably would have scared me. And but I want to talk a little bit about some of the things. First thing I want to do is I want to thank the Into Action group for inviting Susan and I to participate in your first year anniversary. It is such a privilege to be a part of your group's growth and your group's willingness to want to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. I don't know of any other form of encouragement or respect other than the fact that based on the number of new people in Al-Anon and based on the number of new people in Alcoholics Anonymous that stood up this evening, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And it shows that we're trying to reach out and trying to help those new members try to find a way of life which we have been freely given. You know, the book talks about in the chapter Vision for You, it talks about watching a fellowship grow up about you. Watching those new alcoholics, their eyes open up and they get what happens in these rooms, and then they in turn help others. And it says that this is an experience you do not want to miss. We know you won't miss it. And it seems to me that you're not missing it. You know, it says that frequent contact with each other and newcomers is the bright spot of our lives. And I know for a fact that every time we know we're going to see a bunch from Shawnee, or we're going to see this bunch down in Dallas, or we're going to see a bunch in Norman, a bunch in Lawton, the people that seemingly are doing basically the same things that you're doing, we get excited. I mean, it's the anticipation. It's like, for me, if I knew, man, there's a keg down the street, man, I'm going. I don't even have to be invited. I'm going. But it's the anticipation of, we're going to be together. We're going to meet those people that we love. The theme of the Canyon Conference this year was, among them you will meet lifelong friends. And there's people in this group, Into Action's group, that I consider among that collective of lifelong friends. The thing that's amazing is that, tonight, Saturday night, if you're alcoholic, or you're married to an alcoholic, or you're wanting to be married to an alcoholic, I don't know. I know the way I used to live, and I'll get into that here in just a little bit. I know where we would end up. And it wouldn't be looking like we look tonight. If you ended up at the ends of those evenings, or sometimes it'd be a run of days, but at the end, I'm laying in a puddle of my own blood, or I'm laying in vomit, or I'm laying someplace I shouldn't be laying. And I know the people that, near the end, there weren't many, but I know that the people that were concerned about me were wondering where I was laying. Where was I? What was I doing? And the fear and the bewilderment and the terror that I put the people that did love me through. So I am very grateful that your group also includes the Al-Anon and does focus on the solution for the family as well. Very, very important part of our group's belief, and I know obviously it's as well as yours. So I congratulate you on your first year. I'm excited for your future. The other thing is that in the traditions that Chris read tonight, the first tradition, fifth tradition. Fifth tradition says that you have as a group, you've got a primary purpose. Each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message. You have a message. Your group has a message. And I think a lot of times you walk into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it might be a group, but you seemingly don't have an idea of what their message is, because you're hearing so many different things. Maybe one part of the meeting over here is talking about something, and back there they talk about a whole different thing. In fact, that group back there says, hey, don't listen to this part up here, because they don't know what the heck they're talking about. And then there's another section over here. Hey, don't listen to that group or that group, because they're way off. The real answer of our group's over here. And that's happening inside the group. And the newcomers are going to die in there, because there is no unified message. All they see is the fighting and the bickering and the personalities. In the Going Danny Lanks group in Tulsa, we've got a little plaque above our coffee pot, so most people will see it. And it talks about what we believe our group's message to be. And it's just 4 real simple things: respect, sponsorship, commitment to the home group, and carrying the message. That's it. That's what our group's message is. And when you sit in our meeting, that's what you hear. You hear sponsorship. You hear respect. You hear commitment to the home group. And you hear, we're going to carry the message. We're going to go where the suffering alcoholics are. And we may or may not get the suffering alcoholic to come, but if there's a family member that's suffering, we may say, we know where there's a place for you to come. Because this disease is deadly, and it kills people. It doesn't have any regret. It doesn't have any remorse. It just kills people. And we have a way out. And there's a room full of people that obviously have found something that belongs in these, that happens here. So again, I congratulate you on your first year. When I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought I didn't have enough story. I heard some miraculous stories from behind the podiums of Alcoholics Anonymous. These real old guys, 40, 45, and old, And I can recall one story, and Steve and I laugh about this all the time, because there's a guy that's from Waurika, Oklahoma, and man, this guy's got a story. Clevelle, he was World War II pilot. he was running bombing missions over enemy lines, and one night, I know he didn't tell the story, but this is the story I heard. Okay? I don't know if you sit in AA meetings doing that. They tell a story, I hear maybe totally different stuff. But the story he tells is that, this bombing run, and his plane gets shrapnel, and the whole chunk, and what he's running is ammunition. So his plane's on fire, and it's going down. And in the cargo hold, it's all ammunition. So if the fire catches in his ammunition, the whole plane's going to explode. All right? So I'm listening to this, and it's like, man, I don't have anywhere near this kind of story. And so God gets in the plane, and the ammunition explodes, and it blows out, and there's a hole in the back of the plane, and he jumps through the hole, and he parachutes into enemy lines, breaks both legs, crawls 6 days without food or water, right into the heart of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm sitting there going, man, all I did was drink and puke. I got to go get some more story. And what I come to find out is that if I read your book called Alcoholics Anonymous, and I have somebody that has worked through those 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and helps me work through those 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I find out it doesn't matter what is connected to my alcoholism. I can find out that I'm an alcoholic and that I don't have to go any further down than I already am, if I've come to that place where I just don't want to fight anymore. Our book has a description of alcoholism. And if you're uncertain, if you're sitting out there tonight, if you're uncertain if you're an alcoholic or not, because if you're like me, I sat in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous for quite some time wondering, am I? Because I got sober when I was 20. And I didn't know. Because again, in this mind of mine, I've got a picture. The alcoholic guy under the bridge, trench coat, that's what I have this picture of. I'm certainly not that picture. But our book says this. It says, we alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. So I have to ask myself, it seems to me like there are two kinds of alcoholics that sit in meetings of AA. Men alcoholics and women alcoholics. So we only have a message, but we have two types of alcoholics. We alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. So you have to ask yourself, have you lost the ability to control your drinking? If you haven't, you'll probably have to go drink some more. Sorry. There's one more description in our book about alcoholism and what it is, and it's at the beginning of chapter 4, and it says that if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely. Very important, 2 words, quit and then entirely. I quit a lot, but I had never, up to the point I came to you, did I ever quit entirely. But it says, if when I honestly want to, I find I cannot quit entirely, or when drinking, I find I cannot control the amounts that I take, then you're probably alcoholic. I've had a lot of people come to me say, I don't know. Okay, let's look at these two things. Have you lost the ability to control your drinking? If so, you're alcoholic. If when you honestly decide that you don't want to drink anymore and you find you can't quit entirely, or while drinking can't control the amounts you take, you're probably alcoholic. But I'll tell you something, I have never seen, I've only been here around 18 years, and the people that I report to in Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsor and that bunch, I'm a newcomer. And what I find out is that, if I'm uncertain, then there's going to come a time where I'll probably not do the things you ask me. Because in the back of my head, I'm going to come up with a reason why I don't have to do what you do. But if I've got to that point where there's no doubt, there is no doubt in my mind that I belong here, then you have a program of recovery that has turned out to be a way of life that I didn't think could exist for a person like me. And I have people in my life today that I truly love. People in this room today that I just absolutely adore and I just look forward to spending time with. And then we have in our meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, we have the opportunity to see the brand new guy come in and the brand new gal come in. We watch the brand new Al-Anon come in, and they grab hold of this thing, and their lives begin to change. And you can't do anything but get excited about what goes on here. If you are alcoholic, if you have come to that place where you just don't want to fight anymore. So briefly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my alcoholism and how I came to that conclusion. I grew up in a family, one of the things that it's not used so much anymore because I think we finally ran all the people in that were saying it out, but dysfunctional. Come from a dysfunctional family. Nobody can really ever tell me what that is. I know for a fact that my parents functioned. I know they functioned at least 3 times. Myself and 2 brothers. I've got 2 older brothers. My father was a professional ball player. He played in the minor league system at the Chicago Cubs, and we just grew up around athletics and sports and competition, and that's how I grew up. And my oldest brother, he's the shortest of the Bray kids, kind of stocky, but learned how to hit a golf ball and played very, very good for a long period of time. The middle brother, best athlete of the 3. He was a letterman in 3 sports in high school: basketball, baseball, and football. And then there was me. I mean, I was fat. I don't run very fast. I'm gravity challenged. But I'm still out there. And one of the things that my dad's real big on is fundamentals, and he taught us fundamentals. He taught us the fundamentals of throwing a baseball. He taught us the fundamentals of shooting a basketball. He taught us the fundamentals of throwing a football. I know the fundamentals. And today, in my mind, and this is a dangerous place to be, but in my mind, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I am an absolute exceptional athlete. In a body that just is unwilling to cooperate. I know what you're supposed to do. I can envision slam dunking a basketball. I know what I would look like. There's no hope. But the other thing that was instilled at a very early age was this, and it has turned out to be, at times, a benefit to my life, but at most times it's been probably my greatest defect of character. And I am competitive beyond words. Basically, the motto in our home is this. You've ever heard the motto, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. The motto that was in our home was, show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser. So if you have ever participated in any sport, either with me, around me, in the vicinity of me, I can assure you beyond a shadow of a doubt, I am not a good loser. I am attempting to become one. That may happen 20th year. Has not appeared in the 19th as of yet. So, I went out for the freshman football team in high school, and I'm bad. I'm bad at football. I found out that I love what Bob Azance in Minnesota says. He goes, I have a back problem. I found out when I played football I had a back problem. I had a big yellow streak right down the middle of it. I don't like to get hit. So I'm playing football, and in the high school I went to in Chicago, there's like 4 squads. There's the A squad, B squad, C squad, and then reject pile. I'm on the bench on the C squad. Not completely rejected, but I'm hanging in there. And I'm going to football practice. It's like last week of the football season, and we're at practice, and the coach looks at me and he goes, Bray, for a guy like you that comes to football practice every single day, you are beyond, without a doubt, the worst football player I've ever seen in my life. He was right. I took up golf. Now, golf has become a sport that I really enjoy, and I think there's a couple of reasons. Number one, when you hit it, you do not have to run after it. You can walk after it. In fact, you can walk and smoke after it. I have come to find out now you can walk, smoke, or you can ride and smoke after it. I like golf. It turned out that I became fairly good at golf pretty quickly. And by the time that I had finished high school, I was playing to about a 2 handicap. I graduated from high school. I went to a junior college near our house. I was living at home as well, and had started drinking, and drinking had become a big part of what I do. It just started off, kind of cute, kind of fun, had a ball. But then all the things that start to accumulate with those early days of drinking. I got to start lying about it, got to start hiding it, got to start manipulating people, got to start doing all the things. Because number one, when you're 15 years old, you just can't walk in any corner liquor store and get a bottle. So you got to be imaginative to drink when you're that young. And basically, you learn how to steal. But I go to this junior college, and during the time I started drinking when I was about 14. Like I said, I got sober when I was 20. Now, there may be some people out there going, how can that be? It's impossible. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about it. But there was a period of about 3 months from the time that I started drinking to the time that I got to you that I didn't drink. And that was my freshman year in college when I was on the golf team. And at this point in my life, golf, I'd got down to being a scratch golfer. I was competing against some guys that today are on the tour. One of the guys I just saw has won 2 or 3 tournaments this year, bastard. And, making about $500,000 a year, and living a good life. But see, what ended up happening is that there came a time where I got thirsty. And when you're at that level, you have to continue to practice. You have to practice 10, 12 hours a day. Now, you can't practice 10 or 12 hours a day and drink like I drink. Just impossible. And sooner or later, it just came where I'd practice 3 hours, but then get drunk and can't practice. Then it was like an hour and get drunk. Then it was not go and get drunk. Then it was just give the game up. And because I had an allergy, and I love what the doctors. Hello, is it still on? Okay. Anyway, I'll tell you about this mind later. I love what the doctor's opinion talks about. I am fine when I'm drinking. People talk about, when I'm drinking is when I'm at my worst. I'm not. I'm great. I don't have a drinking problem. I drink wonderfully. I'm a great drinker. My problem is when I'm not drinking. When I'm not drinking, I do absurd actions. I start getting what the doctor's opinion calls irritable, restless, and discontent. That's what happens to me when I'm not drinking. I can't, there's nothing I can focus on. I can't focus on anything the only thing that I can think about is where am I going to get that next drink? And what am I going to have to do to get it? And this is the amazing thing. I can remember times about when I would get the bottle, and maybe on the ride home, maybe it's a couple short-minute ride home, take a drink, but stick it in the glove compartment. I'm not drunk yet, but just because it's in the glove compartment, I feel better. It's right there. I know it's there. I feel better. That's the most amazing thing about, I know what alcohol does for me. I heard somebody say this, and this is what I believe today to be why I'm alcoholic. I am not an alcoholic because when I drink, I get drunk. You know what? Non-alcoholics, they drink enough booze, guess what? They're going to get drunk. I'm not an alcoholic because when I drink, I vomit. Guess what? A lot of non-alcoholics drink and vomit. They just don't drink again. You know, you do something that makes you vomit and you're normal, guess what? You just don't do that no more. I'm not an alcoholic because what alcohol does to me. I am an alcoholic because of what alcohol does for me. Alcohol changes me. When I drink alcohol, I change. When you put that stuff in my body, something happens to me. One thing that happens to me when I drink enough alcohol, I drop immediately 20, 30 pounds. I become lighter on my feet. Bold. Pumped up. Invincible. I love alcohol. I love what it does to me. I love what it does for me. And I chased that perception changer as long as I could chase it. The unfortunate part of the disease of alcoholism is that because of the allergy and the compulsion, alcoholism drives the alcoholic to the depths of insanity and beyond. Our book says that many chase this thing into the perception of insanity, into the gates of insanity or death. And that's what happens to alcoholics. And when I'm about to look square in the eye this idea of the first step, that I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life is unmanageable, the reason that most alcoholics die is they can't get there. They cannot see that this stuff called alcohol is the problem. And when it gets right down to it, alcohol isn't the problem. For such a long period of time, alcohol has always been my solution. When things are bad, I drink alcohol. I'm better. People around me don't like me. I don't care. When I drink alcohol, I'm fine. But what goes all along with it, we've got a lot of people that we watch in our group, and I'm sure if our group's anything like our group, you watch a lot of guys come right through, a lot of gals come right through your doors. They stay for a little bit and they go, and you start asking yourself, where'd they go? And what ends up happening is they're only treating one part of the disease of alcoholism, and they're just getting physical sobriety. They think they got a drinking problem. If they're not drinking, they've got it solved. So they stop doing what we do. And what we find out is alcoholism affects me not only physically, but it affects me mentally, affects me emotionally, affects me spiritually. In fact, in the fourth step, it says I have a spiritual malady. I have a spiritual malady. There's something inside me that's missing. And when I drink alcohol, it seemingly fills that hole. That's why I drink it. Unfortunately, I can't control it. And if you're an alcoholic of my type, man, I go downhill fast. Now, it didn't help that I was doing other outside issues. Kind of accelerates the process. You know, one of the guys I sponsor points out in More About Alcoholism, it says that, here are the methods we tried to help control our drinking. Ad infinitum. Okay? One of the things that I did to try to control my drinking was take drugs. Man, I can drink a lot more on some of those substances. I can drink a heck of a lot more, and I like it. Now, the unfortunate thing is on those substances, man, I do wacky things. Tell you two quick stories, and I'll get into sobriety. On a college campus, I graduate that junior college, and I enroll in Northern Illinois University. It's a suburb of Chicago, about 40 miles north of Chicago, a small town called DeKalb. DeKalb is a farming town, basically corn. All it is cornfields. There's a lot of corn. And what they did is they plowed out a lot of the corn, put up buildings called Northern Illinois University, put a lot of bars up. And I go to DeKalb and enroll in some of their classes. I find out that my grade point isn't exactly what they consider stellar. And, there's a lot of things that Susan and our stories are so far apart. Dedication to grades, big one. I really don't have any desire, at least when I'm there, to have good grades. Do just enough. Just enough. Sometimes just not even just enough. We heard a speaker, Steve and I were talking about it last night. One of my favorite lines from any speaker was, "I continually fail to meet the low expectations I set for myself." So I enroll in classes like now. I'm actually considered a junior in this college because I've got a 2-year degree, but I can't find the classes because when I went there, I love when Bill Story talks about I imagined I would be at the head of vast enterprises. I love that because he imagined, and I imagined similar things, and I come to find out that I don't qualify for the classes I need to run vast enterprises. I qualify for classes like, which eventually become, a welder, plumber, electrician, VCR repair. Those are all probably great jobs to do, but it wasn't what I was looking for. So I enroll in a couple English classes, couple art classes, get my books, and go to the bar. Now, I flunked art. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you flunk art, but I flunked art. And one of the things that happens on a college campus is Halloween. Halloween, beyond a shadow of a doubt on a college campus, is an alcoholic dream. I mean, you literally can do just about anything you want on Halloween Eve. Now, the guys that I was hanging out with, we started getting prepared for Halloween about October 15th. And we started partying, getting ready for Halloween. And Halloween comes, and back in 1980, one of the movies that came out back then was a movie called The Warriors, and a movie about gangs. And one of the gangs in this movie was a gang called the Baseball Furies, guys that painted their faces red and white and dressed up in baseball stuff, carried baseball bats, and did gang stuff. And so the guys I'm hanging out with, we decide we're going to go to this party as the Baseball Furies. So we paint our face red and white and get whatever close thing to a baseball uniform and grab a baseball bat. And I don't have a baseball bat, but I got a 4-foot closet, and it's got a 4-foot closet pole. So I remove all the things that are hanging on the, not many, but I get my closet pole and I go to the party. And by this time, every time I drink, I black out. I'm a blackout drinker. And unfortunately, I've got a big mouth. And so combine alcohol with blackout drinking with a big mouth, and not very many good things can come from that. So I go to this party, and the story that was told, because I go into blackout, story that's told, about 3 o'clock in the morning, some of the guys that live in the same apartment complex that I do see me walking in DeKalb, a total different direction that I should have been walking. They grab me and they drag me home. Come into one of the downstairs apartments and one of the other goofy people that are living there, and the story they tell me is I came into the apartment with about this much of that closet pole left, screaming and crying and saying, ooh, and I was hurting people. And I don't recall a single thing of that night. I do not recall what happened. I don't know if I was whacking the people on the head with the closet pole. I don't know what the heck was happening. They tell me that story the next morning, and so it scared me. I started looking in newspapers. Get the college newspaper, which generally has one of the sections in a college newspaper is like the police beat. It lists all the heinous crime going on the campus. And so I'm looking for a story about some goof dressed up like some baseball guy with a closet pole beating on people. I can't find anything. So I discard it. No harm. No biggie. Everybody does that. So I continue to drink. Late November, I come to. Now, I live in an apartment that I'm living with guys. We say we don't like to diagnose anybody alcoholic. We don't like to, but we do sometimes. And I think I'm living with a bunch of them. And we have an alcoholic-looking, smelling apartment. You walk into our kitchen, and every dish that we own is on the countertops. Every cup that we own is on the countertops. Every saucer, little plate, anything we own is on the countertop. And it's covered with various lengths of old food. It could be covered with day-old food. It could be covered with 3-day-old food. It could be covered with 14-week-old food. You get down to that bottom pile, you just don't know. Our carpet has the alcoholic crunch to it. You know, you kind of step on it, it's kind of soggy in places, kind of got that crusty glaze on the top. It's got, because everything's been poured on there, beer and whiskey and urine and bong water and, maybe a little puke in there, So one morning I come to, and I'm lying on that carpet, and I had an intuitive thought, got an art test. So I'm on that carpet, and I'm peel my face. And I look out the window. Our living room bay window doesn't have any. It's got a sheet over it. Alcoholic guys, we are not going to go buy drapes. Hang the sheet. Look out, it's sunny. And I got an art test, so I put on the uniform of the day. And the uniform of the day is basically I've got a T-shirt that I've cut the sleeves off of. Proudly displays 2 words, free me. Put on my shorts, put on my thongs, grab my number 2 pencil, got a test. Walk to class. Now I walk straight to class, art test, trying to figure out what it is about because I have no idea. And I make some stuff up on the way. And I get to class, and the class is in one of these auditorium-style theater seating classrooms. And when I'm in there walking, I'm about to look up to find a place to sit. I look up, and I notice something entirely different about you compared to me. You all of you are in heavy winter clothing. I mean, heavy winter clothing. We're talking the big, bulky coats, gloves, mittens, ski masks that's pulled down that only the eyes come through. Because it's northern Illinois in late November, and it's cold. And as I'm walking up the aisle to get a seat, I hear somebody from deep in one of the aisles go, "Man, what's that guy know we don't?" Because you see, when I came to that morning and peeled my face from that carpet and looked out the window, the only thing, this is how my mind came, this is what my mind was like when I came to you. I look out the window and I see the sun shining. And in my alcoholic mind, the only thing that comes to me is sun. Warm. Free me. Number 2 pencil. Can't have a number 1 or a number 3. You got to have that number 2. And that's pretty much the shape I was in when I got to you. Semester ends and I go home and do the Christmas scene. And by this time I have done everything I can possibly do to my parents. I have taken everything I could take from them. I have stolen money, jewelry. I have stolen anything I can grab my hands on to drink. They look with me pretty much with disdain, and I think it was like January 27, 28. They're imparted to a holiday party, and they go out, and I have one of those get-togethers. I call up 2 or 3 guys, say, "Hey, come over, and let's just have a drink." It's one of those things where you invite 2 or 3 people, and 98 people show up. And one more time, my parents' home, their home, is left to this horde. And I do what I do. I drink whiskey and I black out. And this night I pass out. And their home is left to this horde. And it's destroyed, basically. It's to the point where 3 days later, up upstairs in my parents' bedroom, they had their lockbox, which all their personal papers, the deeds to the home, and just wills, probably whatever, just their important their stuff. 3 days after that party, my mom found that beaten to within an inch of its life behind the furnace in the basement. Now, what was separating the would-be thieves from its booty? The lockbox wasn't locked. The only thing that separated was one of those little, lunchbox latches. But they just couldn't quite figure it out. You know, it's amazing. In a book, it talks about, Steve mentioned it last night, it talks about that, in those last days we seek out, lower companionship. What I failed to realize is they were seeking me out. See, because I do things that just shouldn't be done. I treat people like they shouldn't be treated. The last thing my father said to me before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1981 was, he looked me square in the eye and he said to me, Dave, with a son like you, I do not need any enemies. The book talks about that frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices, and I know froth from firsthand experience. I know what frothy emotional appeal is. I have clear vision of my mother screaming at me, Dave, stop drinking. Just stop it. Don't you see what you're doing to us? Just stop drinking. And those little white puddles of spittle gather at the corner of her mouth. That's froth. And her frothy emotional appeal seldom sufficed. And the day after this debacle, on January 2nd, my father gives me his final ultimatum. He's done. He doesn't want anything to do with me. He barely can look at me. There's such hatred in his eyes that I just, it's just because, and I don't blame him. I didn't blame him a bit. And he said, I can't have you living here anymore. We can't take it. We want you out. And he said, is there anything, you need to stop drinking. And for some reason, this is the first time I said something to him that I had never said before. And I said to him, if I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to need help. And it's the very first time that those words had ever passed my lips. And I believe today beyond a shadow of a doubt, because from the day that I said that to this day, I've not had a drink. People talk, I hear quite frequently, they talk about their moment of clarity. Alcoholics, I believe, gift of God is they get a moment of clarity. And we get to see our lives for what it actually is. We get to see ourselves for who we really are. And for that moment, I saw who I was, and I saw what I was, and I didn't like it, and I knew I needed help. My moment of clarity has never was that I'm an alcoholic. I knew I was an alcoholic 2 years before I came to you. I knew I had it up. I knew I couldn't control my drinking 2 years before I came to you. It wasn't enough to stop. That day that I knew I need help is the day that I could let somebody in. And I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that my task on a daily basis is to remind myself of that moment of clarity. I must keep that moment alive in my heart. Without you, I can't do it. Without your help, I can't get sober. Maybe I can stop drinking, but there's a difference between stopping drinking and being sober. Because sober is a way I live today. Sober is how I interact with you. Sober is my life. I don't have a drinking problem. I have a sober problem. I have a living problem. I need your help. And I thank God every morning where I can get up and I can say, please help me. And when I come to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous today, it's not so much what I can get. Because the thing that I've also come to find out is this program of Alcoholics Anonymous, these 12 steps, when I run through the inventory and I run through my amends, I have been given the freedom to start my process of building a relationship with my God. But I don't recover trying to help me. I've never got well trying to help me. AA isn't about helping you. It's only a very small part of it. My recovery comes when I stick my hand out to the new guy and say, come here and get it. We've got something for you. I get much, much more out of helping another member of Alcoholics Anonymous work through those 12 steps than I ever got going through it myself. This program isn't about me getting well. It's about I get well when I help somebody else get well. And I didn't realize that. How could I? My book describes me to a T. It doesn't say that I've got a problem with alcohol. It tells me what my problem is. My problem is I'm selfish and I'm self-centered. I'm self-seeking, self-pitying, and I suffer from self-delusion. That's my problem. I'm always thinking about myself. In fact, I love this. This is one of the other things I hear here. I'm not much, but I'm all I think about. Now, in those bars, I had wonderful moments where I could get you thinking about me. Now, that's a challenge. And in an AA meeting, it's almost impossible. But if I could get you thinking about me, and you shaking your head say stuff, Dave, man, if we had it as rough as you, we'd drink too. Man, I had it made. I had succeeded that day. But I had run out of people that would even sit next to me. So they whisked me off to a treatment center. I go through the 28-day, and at the end of 28 days, they give me my $10,000 big book. Treatment has not one single thing to do with my recovery. Not a damn thing. The only thing treatment did was lock me up long enough, and they said, go to AA. Any treatment center that's worth its salt is the one that says, go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I go to Alcoholics Anonymous, they give me this big book and start off on meetings, and after 28 days, they whisk me off to this halfway house. Stayed in a halfway house with 15 other goofy people trying to get sober. Halfway house had nothing to do with my recovery. I didn't start recovering till somebody started working me through this 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Once I began that process, recovery started in my life. About a year sober, I decided to try to pick up some college education, which is, geez, that's real brilliant. Some people go on the 4-year plan, people go on the 5-year plan. I went on the 12-year plan. And so I go to Norman, Oklahoma. My oldest brother, he graduated from OU. He said, why don't you come to Norman and we'll get you enrolled at OU. And the only reason I came to Norman, Oklahoma, is because in-state tuition at OU was cheaper than in-state tuition in Illinois at that time. So I went to Oklahoma. One of the things that's amazing to me, and Sharon Barker talks about, AA is full of these situations that are separated from success and failure by seconds and inches. And I'm looking through a phone book trying to pick an AA meeting. And I pick a place it's in the phone book, and it's called the Big Book Group. And I go to that group. I could have picked any other group, and I might have missed it. Because I fall into the group that at that time in Norman, Oklahoma, has a group that's dedicated respect, commit, just stuff that I rebelled against. Susan, another thing, we're far apart. She talks about authority, alcoholic. There ain't no rules. There's no rules. We've had a 13-year battle, she trying to help me wear a seatbelt. We'll get in the car and she'll go, it's a law now. Like that's going to matter. But I got a sponsor, and the sponsor led me through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I did my very first inventory with the way the big book lays it out, and I did my amends, and I started the process I went back and saw my folks. Started making some amends in my first year, the second year of my sobriety, and I sat in front of them, and I told them how wrong I was for the things that I had done in their life. And there was some acceptance, but very little. And I came back to Norman and just got busy in Alcoholics Anonymous. Got involved in this group, and like Susan described, we lived on AA Row. And the clubhouse was at the end, and then we couldn't get these normies out. They kept living there. We tried, but we couldn't get them out. And then there were 3 houses full of Alcoholics Anonymous, Susan and her 2 boys, and this house full of AA women, and then the house of AA guys that I was in. And there were 3 of us that paid the rent, and we just kept newcomers. We were one of the houses that when a new guy showed up, we put him up. And there were times, there was 3 bedroom, and this house was like 1,000 square feet. And there was times where there was anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 guys living in that house. 1 bathroom. We had the pecking order. Whoever had the most time got the bathroom first. The amazing thing was, and we watched these newcomers come in and out. Members that were living there got drunk, and we just keep switching out. And I got to be active in members in Alcoholics Anonymous. Susan and I met, and we became very, very good friends, and we knew each other a couple years before we ever started dating. And like she told you, she went to that women's conference, and Sunday afternoon I went over to her home, and she's in the kitchen broiling the steaks, and she turned around. I was in the kitchen. She turned around, and I was right there, and I kissed her. And the most amazing thing happened to me. 4 years sober, she kissed me back. That hadn't happened to me in a while. And so I still have this head. I still have got this mind. And so in my mind, I did the very next logical thing that I could come up with. Didn't talk to my sponsor. I just moved in. Now, it wasn't it wasn't much like me bringing my stuff over because it still didn't have much. And actually, all it was I'd drive down the street and I'd park 2 doors down from where I was normally parking. I mean, it was a big deal. And so one night we'd been going together for some time, and one night we were laying in bed, and she asked me a question that I couldn't believe. And the gals, I'm going to tell you, this is not a real good question, especially if you're going to ask it to an alcoholic, drunk or sober. But she asked me, Dave, what are you thinking? Now, these words came out of my mouth, and when they were out there in the air and I heard what I said, I knew bad, wrong answer, but they were already out there. I said, I don't think I can marry you. It was wrong answer. Thanks for playing our game. We have some nice departing gifts for you on the way out. I'm out of there. Now, she moved into Vinoy's house, and you'd heard her story, so like when the guys leave, it devastates her. I mean, it was devastating, and I wasn't doing too well myself. I went to my sponsors one night, and we were going to I think this happened either on a Thursday or a Friday night, and that Saturday we were going to the meeting, and I was getting in his car, and I bent down to get in the car, and I gashed my forehead on his window. So I'm bleeding. I'm going to the meeting, my eyes puffing out. And, man, it's a mess. And at this time, Jim and Vinoy, every Saturday night after their meeting, they would have fellowship in their home. And the big thing that was back then is Trivial Pursuit just came out. And, man, we'd have Trivial Pursuit parties over at their home. And the guys would gang up against the gals, and Vinoy and Susan and that bunch would cheat to try to win. And we just had a ball. It was literally the happiest times of my early sobriety was those fellowships and just being together and feeling that thing that happens in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous and that fellowship and that bond. The book talks about that we're bound together because we're surviving a disease that would normally kill all of us, and we're bound together. And every Saturday night, people are going over there. So at the end of this Saturday night, people are going over there. And I know, now here comes my head again, I'm not welcome. And man, my head locks in on that. I am thinking about not being welcomed, and I don't like that thought. And I want to get it out of there, and it sucks back in. Not welcome. Sucks, not welcome. And I just, all of a sudden, like a curtain comes down. And there isn't any Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm 4.5 years sober when this happens, and I'm an active member of AA. I'm sponsoring guys. I'm taking meetings into prisons. I'm active in my home group. I'm doing the deal, and I've got a point right now where I have got such a resentment I can't see. Well, I had to be sure, so I drove by. You can hear the laughter going on. And I roll the window down, and I drive slowly by. And I listen. I hear all the laughter. I did a drive-by listen. And at that was it. That was the final straw. Thought came in that I think can kill an alcoholic, and the thought that came in my head was, screw it. What's the use? And the very next thought that followed that was, I'm going to go get drunk. It was just that fast. 20 minutes ago, I'm an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous, happy about my sobriety. 20 minutes later, I can't bring up one positive thing about you. And I'm thinking about drinking. And I'm ready to go, and I'm put the foot on the gas, and I had to put the foot on the brake because the thought came, I don't know where to drink. I had never been drunk in Norman. I don't know where to go. I had to actually put the car in park. I had to think about where to go. And at that moment, I believe God stepped in and he said to me, Dave, go see if Chip's home. Chip was another member of Alcoholics Anonymous in our group. And so I drove by Chip's home. And I believe within a shadow of a doubt today that if Chip wasn't home, you'd have a different speaker tonight. But he was home. And I go into his apartment and I just start bawling and I'm blowing snot and I'm taking all of your inventories. And one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic, he talked me through that night, and I didn't have to drink. Following Saturday, Susan comes walking up to me, got that Al-Anon smirk. I don't know where you Al-Anons get that smirk, but she had the Al-Anon smirk. She just heard a joke. And she said, Dave, what's the difference between a Yankee and a bucket of shit? The bucket. She did her Al-Anon stroll back to the seat. And I was just glaring her down the whole meeting. So I did the only thing that I knew what to do, and I married her. And we got married on August 3rd of 1985, and this August we'll be married 14 years. And I don't know how to be married. I am selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, self-deluded. And the only reason that I believe our marriage works is the first and the foundation of our relationship is that we believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that God has put us together. That these programs is where we met and God was in the center of it, and we believe beyond that God's in the middle of our relationship. And she's active in her Al-Anon program, and she sponsors a lot of Al-Anon gals. And I'm active in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I sponsor a bunch of alcoholics. And our phones are always ringing. And AA happens, and Al-Anon happens in our home. You are always in our home. When we got married, we had almost nothing. We had her stuff. We didn't have any of my stuff. I had Free Me t-shirts. Okay. When we got married, her car was broke down in the Safeway parking lot. When we got married, my car was broke down in front of the apartment with no repair in sight. And that's how we went on our honeymoon. And we have been a part of the Canyon Conference every year, and every year at the end of the conference, there's a little chapel on the grounds of the conference grounds, and every year we go into that chapel at the end. And on Sunday afternoon, we get down in one of the pews in that chapel, and we do a third step prayer on our marriage. And we offer our marriage to God, and for Him to do with our marriage as He will, and to build with it as He would, and to relieve us of the bondage of self. Because there's times when all we're doing is thinking about stuff. You know, we plan. We're good at planning, and we just got to back off of that stuff. We have literally the things that have come to us since we've been married are remarkable, and yet we still doubt sometimes what God can do in our lives. And so that's why every year we get in that chapel and we do that third step prayer. And then after we're done there, we get up and we stand in the middle of the aisle in that chapel and we take off our wedding rings and we renew our vows every year at the Canyon Conference. We believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that these two programs have given us what we have, and we pay respect to these two programs. You know, I told you about our group and the things that we talk about and the things that we try. Our message is unified. And a big of it is respect. It's respect for our sobriety, and it's respect for the recovery that comes to our home. And sometimes I didn't know what those things were, and that's why I had to have a sponsor. My sponsor taught me what respect was. Number one, respect is stay seated when a meeting is going on. When a meeting's going on, don't get up in the middle of a meeting. Don't go to the bathroom. Don't go get coffee. Don't go get Cokes. Don't rattle ice chests. Stay seated. Don't yak when somebody else is talking. Show some respect. If you can't show respect, don't come. That's what my sponsor was mean to me. Dave, this meeting's not about you. When you're getting up and shuffling around and making noise, people are missing what they should have heard while you're making all that commotion. Sit down, shut up, and be attentive. You might hear something that you might need. I'm so selfish, the only thing I think about in meetings of AA is me and what I could contribute to your recovery. There's some big news. He taught me about, Dave, it'd be nice. He told me this at 4 years sober. Dave, it'd be nice if you looked better than the newcomer. You read How It Works tonight, and I talked about in the fifth tradition, it says that you have a message. Each group carries its message. We say something to the new person every night in a meeting that you read How It Works. We say something, and I believe we say it to the new person. We say this. We say, if you want what we have, and you're willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. Well, you know what? When I was brand new, I didn't know what you had. But if your group is unified and your message is loud and it's clear and it's strong, the new person will see what your message is. And if it's respect and it's sponsorship and it's commitment to the home group and it's helping other people and they hear it over and over and over and over, you know what? There's a good chance they may want it. But if they don't want it, that's why there's so many meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, because you can go to other meetings. Just leave ours alone. My sponsor was mean to me. I remember one time, I'm 14 years sober, and I called him up whining about something. I still was whining. And I'm whining about something, and he goes, Dave, shut up. He goes, Dave, let me tell you something. I'm assuming you asked me to be your sponsor because you want what I have. I can assure you, I want nothing you have. Now, why would he want anything I had? He had 15 more years of sobriety. He had been where I was 15 years ago. He had grown way past that. Why would he want anything I had? When somebody's brand new coming in, we better show something. I hope when they look into Alcoholics Anonymous and they see what goes on here, because they're doubtful they'll hear anything. Brand new people are doubtful they hear anything. But what they'll see might be the thing that catches them. And if they see something that's attractive, they might come back. Maybe, just maybe, I can have what you have here. See, the one thing I didn't have when I got here was hope. I didn't have any of that. I didn't think what you had here could help somebody like me because I was too dirty, I was too disgusting, I'd do too many things. I had done too many things wrong. I didn't think AA was going to help somebody like me. But you kept saying, come back. Keep coming back. Keep doing the things that we do. Your life can change. Hopefully the message the new person sees is something they'll like. If they walk into an AA meeting and they hear nothing but profanity, that tells them something. If they walk into an AA meeting and there's nothing but heeing and sheeing going on, or heeing and heeing, or sheeing and sheeing, and meeing and meeing, what's that going to tell them? If they hear one thing over here and they hear another thing over here and they hear a third thing over there and they hear a fourth thing over there, what's that going to tell them? If there's total disharmony and there's profanity and there's just discord, why would they want what you have? I can go down to the nearest pub and get all that. I wanted something different when I came to AA. And so I salute this group that's trying to show respect for Alcoholics Anonymous. I salute this group that's trying to have some unity about its message. I salute your group for supporting sponsorship and tradition, and especially service. Because the new guy or the new gal that wants what we have, and you know what? There's going to be a lot that won't want it. There's going to be a lot that walk through the door and they walk right back out because what we're asking is too darn tough. But I know one thing. My sponsor has never one time asked me to do something that was harder on me than alcoholism ever was. My sponsor has never once asked me to do something that treated me worse than the way I treated people while I'm in active alcoholism. The only thing my sponsors ever wanted for me is what was best for me, regardless of how I felt about it. He cared more about telling me the truth and teaching me about integrity for the alcoholics in Alcoholics Anonymous than he ever cared about how I felt. AA isn't about how I feel. It's about what I do. And because I'm an alcoholic and I have thrown away principle and everything that was decent in my life, I don't know what to do. All I know is how to live my way. Lying, cheating, stealing, and hurting people. That's what I do when I'm an alcoholic. Now, if you want something different, do what we do. If you want to do things your way, great. Just stop bothering us. Last quick things. One of the hardest things I ever had to watch was my mom dying of alcoholism. I watched this disease start to deteriorate her faster, and when our book talks about that it destroys women a lot quicker, it certainly was destroying my mom. And her life was coming to an end quick. And she was starting to show all the signs of late-stage alcoholism. She was down to nothing. Her liver was starting to bloat, and she was blacking out. She couldn't remember conversations. It was just hard to watch. The only time Susan and I ever fought was when we'd go see my mom. And in 1993, my father lost his job, and he had to be at home. And for whatever reason, he got up one night, and my mom was chugging down a bottle of vodka in the kitchen. And the next day he called me and he said, "Dave, what do we do?" And in January of 1993, they put my mom in a treatment center. And in January of 1994, I got to stand up in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in Sarasota, Florida, and I got to hand my mom her one-year sobriety medallion. And in January of 1998, I got to stand up in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in Sarasota, Florida, and I got to hand my mom her 5-year sobriety medallion. And people ask me, why do I care so much? Why are you such a jerk about this stuff, Dave? Because you know what? I want it to be able to save the lives of the people that need this thing. I don't really care about the people that come in here and want to half measure it and disturb our meetings. I don't really care about those people. I want them to have it. I want them to have it probably more than they want it. But they're certainly not willing to do the things that are going to be necessary for them to stay sober. But the people that need it, I want it to be here for them. My 15-year birthday, my wife got real sneaky and she flew my parents in, and they got to observe a weekend of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they saw Alcoholics Anonymous at its very best. They saw you put on a weekend just like this weekend. They got to see Alcoholics Anonymous at its finest, and you shine that weekend. And at the end of that weekend, I took my parents back to the airport, and as they were getting on their plane, my dad pulled me aside. And he looked me in the eye this time again, and he said, "You know, Dave, there was a point where I thought you had a promising golf career. But," he said, "after this weekend, it's very obviously that you've been called to a higher order." And that relationship has been healed. We're never going to, I don't know what it is about fathers and sons, but we're never going to be just, we talk about feelings. We're still men. But almost every conversation ends with me saying to my father, "I love you, Dad." And almost every conversation I have with him ends with him saying, "I love you, Dave," or "I love you, son." And it took 15 years of Alcoholics Anonymous to do that. And I care about that. I want that to happen for your life. But you have to want it more than what you have right now. This program has given me gifts beyond measure. I have 2 granddaughters. That's amazing. I got to hold these little bundles of life. That's amazing. Because people wouldn't let me near their children when I came to you. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. I thank God for this program. I thank God for its plan of recovery. It's because of Alcoholics Anonymous that today I have a relationship with my God. And for that, I'll always be grateful. Happy anniversary. Thanks for letting me share.